Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. I am Rossano Stewart, author of Justice Dunn. Hello once again. I am coming to you to bring you more information concerning Justice Dunn. I know I have said many times and told you about the hero of Justice Dunn, which is a very good start. But today I'd like to let you know what the hero is up against. The hero, of course, of my story is Justice Dunn. He's a U.S. Army veteran who is suffering from PTSD, and during one of his missions in Afghanistan, he was contaminated during an explosion of a mission that had went wrong, and most of the fellow comrades in his unit had perished from this explosion. However, Justice was contaminated by an element that was exploded by the U.S. government, which causes an incredible transformation to Justice, where it renders him with so many powers that the government wants to keep a watch on him to study what exactly these powers are. So let me tell you about the antagonist in the story. There is two, and there's two protagonists in the story. Justice, of course, Justice Dunn is one, and the other protagonist is Amber Paul, a photojournalist who is on a mission to find out who is abducting children off the streets. Now, this antagonist is hideous. He is not only abducting these children off the street, he's also selling them. So the antagonist is a molester, a human trafficker, and it is involved with several other traffickers around the globe. So it's imperative for Amber to find him and bring him to justice. She is a photojournalist who is also a veteran of the U.S. Army and has returned home to Pittsburgh to care for her aging mother. During this, she is a competent and well-crafted photojournalist and has been for some time in the Pittsburgh area. This, of course, is one of her most challenging stories to date. And she will, of course, journey through a great deal of trials and tribulations in trying to find out who this abductor is. The papers and her fellow journalists will name the abductor the Shadow Snatcher because he moves within the shadows of everyday life in the Pittsburgh area. He's crude, he's sadistic, he is an enemy to everything that is good in the world, and with innocent children, of course, he is hideous, and he must be stopped. It is disrupting the city through panic and dismay. So Amber is hot on his trails to find out who and reveal who he is and what this abductor is doing with these children. This has been going on for quite some time in the Pittsburgh general area, and the police are baffled, FBI are baffled, law enforcement just really have no clue other than the little partials that are deciphered through each abduction. Amber, however, is on the streets in the community, and she's known. People have trusted her many times before, and she is an asset to the law enforcement. Sorry about that, I'm trying to make adjustments. She has various competition throughout the journalists in the city, the local journalists, the television journalists, the periodical journalists and such. But Amber is determined to find out who this particular person is and what it's all about. She's a very good writer, has received many awards for her photojournalism as well as her journalistic abilities. She is assisting her aging mother on the personal side to begin the transition of old age, and that presents quite a few situations for her to handle as well. The other antagonist in the story of Justice Dunn is Sonny Streets. Sonny Streets is a drug dealer which he inherited from his father, who has took his product and his means and his modus operandi to New York. And although he is in New York and has his own empire there, he has been convicted of murdering a New York City police officer, a detective, while undercover pursuing his Sonny's escapades. There is some background to that, being that it is a corrupted police officer, corrupted detective police officer who is a thief among all things, other than enforcing the law and doing right by the law. He's also a thief, and in his pursuit for money, he falsely accuses and provides evidence against Sonny Streets, the elder. Now, his connection to Pittsburgh is his son and his woman. His woman is a Pittsburgher, born and raised, and her family also resides in the Pittsburgh area. So that brings forth a connection to Sonny Streets Sr. with his son, Sonny Streets Jr., who is now an adult, younger adult, who has taken the empire to Pittsburgh and has infiltrated the streets of Pittsburgh and influence the drug suppliers throughout Pittsburgh. He is the leader of a cartel that has fortified themselves here in the Pittsburgh area by polluting the streets, schools, and adult areas with dangerous drugs. Now, these drugs are not just heroin, they are cocaine, they are trank, they're any type of hallucinogen or dangerous drugs that the addicted will buy. He is challenging the system. He has corrupted the system. He has various different police and law enforcement on his payroll and operating in a district in Pittsburgh that has been known to traffic these illicit drugs. These compatriots that he has working for him stick to a particular code of rambunctiousness and deprivation of the city streets. Sonny and Justice have a commonality from high school. They both attended the same high school, competed in the school's athletics, and Justice was always more than Sonny could handle as far as the competition in the general school area and sports. So Sonny has always had a competitive dislike for Justice. Justice has a younger brother who he left on the streets of Pittsburgh as he was serving in Afghanistan, and the younger brother fell victim to heartache from his love of his life, who had succumbed to an overdose, which is suspicious because she never, during her high school and her younger days, were never involved with drugs. However, she attended the same high school as Justice, Jerome, and Sonny. So in the story, you will see how and why, what comes about for her demise. This will carry over into Jerome as a heartache that he can't get over. So it disrupts his lifestyle and his life to the point that he succumbs to using drugs as a form of pacification from his heartache. He has been on the streets for as long as his brother's been serving in the military. Justice is unaware of this until he returns home after a fatal or a tragic accident, I should say, that occurred during that mission in Kandahar. So I wanted to just let you know what Justice is up against and how heavy his burden is. And also for Amber, the other protagonist in the story. And also, let me, if I may, read a chapter or some of a chapter of Justice Dunn so that you could be a bit more familiar with the story. of Justice Dunn. Chapter 3. Justice and Aunt Zula have returned home from church. Zula has prepared dinner for the two of them, and they are now seated at the kitchen table. It's Justice's favorite: oxtails, greens, peas and rice, and cornbread. No one on this planet can make it better than Zula. At least, that's what Justice thinks. It sure is good to see you, Justice, says Aunt Zula as she sits across the table watching Justice. It had been almost 10 years since last she had seen Justice Dunn. Seated across the table from him now, Zula began to remember how much he favored his mother, her beloved sister Eloise. The fullness of her eyebrows and cheeks were there upon his face. The face she had not seen in years since her sister's passing now sits not more than 5 feet from her, directly across her kitchen table. 10 years, 10 long, compassionate years of memories of a life without her soulmate. Baby, what happened to you in church today? When I looked over at you to wake you, there was this faraway look in your eyes. Justice looked deep into his aunt's eyes. He almost could see the resemblance of his mother in her eyes. It gave him a strong sense of maternal love from his favorite aunt. As he shared momentary glances while enjoying the meal, the kindred emotions of never ever hearing his mother's voice, feeling her healing touch, or her warm and loving smile, again left him with a sense of loss and emptiness. After dinner, while Zula cleaned the dishes, Justice sat and watched the local news in the living room. No sooner than the local news wrapped its local broadcast, Justice had fallen back to the sand. Sergeant Dunn, leaning back in his aunt's lazy boy chair, perspiring reluctantly, his conscious mind feared the occurring nightmare, while his subconscious phobia demanded its way to the visual cortex of his brain. The wind and sand danced with one another as the heat held back the air like a vacuum. Smith, a fellow soldier, held point as Jackson watched his back. Monk and Towns fell back a few yards as the second wave. Dunn kept his eyes on the ridgeline. The sun made visibility impossible without protection. The glare of its rays could cause momentary blindness, moments that in this God-forsaken place can be fatal. Hudson, the driver, maintained the post from the road. The team continued to move forward. The bluff gave clearance to the lower road. 100 yards in the distance, an activity of some kind could be seen. Sergeant Dunn focused his optics through his binoculars for a sharper look. Several people that looked to be Iraqi nationals, men, women, and children, filled the rear of a cargo truck. Iraqi militia police, 6 of them on the ground, 2 vehicles and an American white male holding a weapon upon the driver of the cargo truck. The moment looked intense. The driver of the truck would not cooperate with the American. The militiamen were shouting strongly at the passengers in the rear of the vehicle. An Iraqi woman, and what now could be clearly seen are young boys and girls frantically screaming for their lives as the militiamen and girls were harassed at gunpoint. Sergeant Dunn orders his team to wait for further instructions so as not to reveal their cover. Dunn, adjusting his line of sight for closer observation, can now clearly see the desperation and fear in the Iraqi women and the militia. The militia, each holding an AK-47 machine gun with 50-round banana clips, furiously pointed and shouted at the women. The American agent again and again shouts for the driver to exit the vehicle as he unveils an automatic handgun and places it at the driver's temple. The driver is pulled from behind the steering wheel and thrown to the ground. The American swiftly handles the driver by his hair and neck forcibly, bringing him to his knees, then to his feet. and drags his head and body to the rear of the truck. The Iraqi woman continues to scream at the militiamen, as do they at her. The children have now all begun to scream as they watch. The American agent places the gun to the driver's head, then pulls the hammer back. All of Sergeant Dunn's team has eyes on the situation as they lay under camouflage cover against the terrain. Suddenly, one of the Iraqi women in the group bolts forward toward one of the militiamen, striking him across the face and head. The militiaman slings his weapon across his chest and strikes the woman with his fist. She falls to the ground, bleeding from the nose and mouth. The other militiamen stand at the ready. The shouting echoes and intensifies as Justice is awakened from the night. This passage is to describe the situation at boiling point in Kandahar, that Justice and his men are on overwatch. This will continue, of course, to become a fervent situation, which will turn into a cataclysmic disaster. This leads up to the explosion that will cause the element that these Iraqi and Taliban soldiers have in their possession, a element which is a rock that has implanted itself from another universe into the earth maybe thousands of years ago. And the Iraqi militia and Iraq people always scour the desert for any type of elements or rocks or such that they can use, sell, or gain an access to weaponry and increase the power of the Taliban. So this will escalate, as I said, and cause a catastrophic explosion. To bring you to what Justice is dealing with here back in the civilian world is also similar to what he faced in Iraq. I hope that I've brought you a bit more intrigued to the story of Justice Dunn, and hope that you will in turn want to investigate the story and hopefully pick up Justice Dunn at your local bookstores and online at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and directly from my website, eyeofthebeholderpictures.com. This has been Rossano Paul Stewart once again, bringing you the story of Justice Dunn. I want to thank you at this time for your time. Until next time, God bless.